Hey, I'm Kelly with Waterfall Woodworking, and today I'm going to show you how to make this easy DIY address sign. Let's go. For this project, I used pine boards from Home Depot. I went with a 1x8 for the base of the address sign and 1x3s for the chevron pattern. You will also need numbers, stain, and something to seal the wood with. I started by laying out my numbers on the 1x8 and decided if I wanted these horizontal or vertical. Once that was decided, I began to rough measure where my numbers would go so I could figure out how long to cut my wood. Then I headed over to my miter saw to cut the base of the address sign. For the chevron pattern, I wanted these pieces long enough so I didn't need any small filler pieces on the border of the sign, so I cut these on the long end to ensure they would cover enough space. To make sure my cuts were the same length, I started by cutting one piece. I then locked my miter saw in place and pushed that first piece against the blade. Then I clamped a scrap piece of wood next to that first piece, making a stop block for these cuts. From there, it was super easy to bump my wood against the stop block and cut the remaining pieces. Once everything was cut, I sanded all my wood to 220 grit. And since this is going to be stained and be outside, I made sure to pop the grain by wetting the wood and sanding again at 220. Now for the fun part, assembling the chevron pattern. I started by marking the center of my wood and drawing a 45-degree line with my speed square. This will give me a reference of where to line up my first two pieces. The first two pieces are the most important since they set up the entire pattern. I lined up the first two pieces against those lines with the ends just sticking off the base. This was so the corners of the base were fully covered. Where these two pieces meet is the center of the base, so this pattern will be as centered as possible. Laying out your design first really helps. To secure these pieces to the base, I used wood glue and my brad nailer. I made sure those first two pieces were aligned just how I wanted them, and from there, it's just following the pattern and securing everything in place. After I let the glue dry, it was time to cut off these ends. This is a little tricky because there isn't a straight side to reference, so I took my time lining up my blade with the wood and then clamping my piece down to make the cuts. I then did this for every side. For the longer sides, my miter saw couldn't cut everything off at once, so to finish those cuts, I flipped the sign facing up, lined up my miter saw in the cut line, and finished cutting those ends off. And there's your sign. I then went in and filled all the nail holes with some wood filler and then gave everything one final sanding. To prep for staining, I made sure to vacuum up all the dust on this wood and on my workbench. I'm using Minwax stain in Early American for this project. This is one of my favorite stain colors. It's the perfect mix of brown and neutral colors. It looks so good. I just love watching that chevron pattern come to life with this stain. After letting the stain dry for a day, I sealed this sign with Minwax Spar Urethane. I've used this product on some outdoor projects in the past and it works really well. I just followed the instructions on the back and made sure all the sides of the sign were sealed. Last step, attaching the numbers. I laid out the numbers and measured where I wanted the bottom of the numbers to go. I then put down some masking tape so I had a reference line to ensure the numbers would be straight. After I was triple sure that this masking tape was straight, I placed my numbers back on the sign and just adjusted the spacing between them all. Before screwing my numbers in place, I took a drill bit, you can use anything sharp really, and I just marked on the sign each of the holes for the numbers. This is super helpful in case the numbers move at all. I know exactly where the holes should line up to. I then just took the screws the numbers came with and screwed them all in. And there you have an easy DIY address sign. I love how this turned out. I think these add such a nice element on houses, and you can really customize these however you want. If you liked this video and want to see more DIY and woodworking videos, please make sure to subscribe to my channel down below. I'll see you in the next one.